We're back with Taso Arima, who is the CEO of IperionX Limited, soon to be on the NASDAQ. Presently, you can find it on the Australian Stock Exchange. Taso, thanks for joining us for a second time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris.
Now, we want to go into today to this section here, talking about Iperion specifically. Iperion is a company that I recommended a while back, a national investor. I've been to the project in Tennessee, and we'll start there, Tasso. As far as the project is concerned, you've got a massive piece of property there. You've been adding incrementally to it for quite a while, kind of like you did when you founded Piedmont, and you and Lamont Leatherman literally went door to door to get landowners and leases and occasional sales and so forth. You've been able to put together a big land package and a big resource. Give us an overview of that, if you would, and the characteristics of it as far as the rare earth elements that are there, the titanium and so forth that's there.
Yeah, it's thanks for having me on, and it's a good way to start. I think for us, we were looking to reshore the titanium metal supply chain, or the whole titanium supply chain. And so you need to think about, we say you need to think about three things. You need to think about technology, integration, and sustainability to reshore a sustainable, economically and financially sustainable supply chain. The mineral part of the business is that integration piece. You need to be able to integrate with sustainable sources of feedstock. So when Lamont and I were looking at the titanium supply chain and where we could find titanium to reshore the titanium mineral coming out of the ground, we focused in on this area of West Tennessee. And what we saw here was not just immense potential for titanium minerals in the McNary Sand, in an area which needs these sort of jobs in Henry, Benton, Carroll County, and West Tennessee. We also saw the potential for other critical materials in that sand formation as well, in particular the rare earth elements. So we focused in, we were looking to reshore the titanium mineral supply chain to feed eventually into a full titanium metal supply chain from ore through to metal in the ground. And we were lucky to find an area which was historically explored, similar to how in Piedmont Lithium, the North Carolina tin spodumene belt was historically exploited or produced from. And so we came here. We secured properties with local landowners and farmers and timber owners, and we started putting together a large property position. And almost 2 years later now, we're sitting here with over 11,000 acres and with one of the largest titanium mineral resource in North America, one of the largest rare earth resources in North America, and we expect it to continue to grow as we continue to prove out or explore in this region. And this region, Chris, extends from not just where we are, which is northwestern part of West Tennessee. It extends all the way down to the Mississippi border with Tennessee. So 100 miles or so of potential mineral sands here, enriched with titanium and rare earths. And we say we're just scratching the surface, or it's just the tip of the iceberg of the potential out here.
Well, I found it was interesting when I visited last spring that a couple of your crew and I were out walking some of the ground, getting an idea of what the landscape was like and so forth. And we stopped literally on the side of one of the county highways, where an area where when it rains hard, there's a certain area where it always gets washed. And it was almost like you'd been panning for gold, except here you're planning for this black sand that carries a lot of these rare earth elements and stuff. You could see where the lighter stuff had been washed away, and here you've got just these rivulets of black sand all along the roadside. I mean, this stuff is everywhere down. I found it remarkable. Looking ahead, I mean, you're going to be exploring this probably for some time to come, building a resource. And obviously there's nothing near term, but down the road, let's talk about the rare earth elements for just a minute, because that's a big hot button. I think the average person doesn't realize that the rare earth element name is a bit of a misnomer. It's not that a lot of these substances are rare, but it's not just finding them, but being able to process them and put them into a finished product. And that's really where we're lacking. And you kind of have to wait for that to some extent, don't you?
So for us, I look at the rare earth industry, and I think, yes, today we're very reliant on overseas imports for rare earth oxides and rare earth magnets, but we have the potential here with a few operations or a few few projects in the country looking to reshore it. The advantage with what we're doing is that effectively it's a byproduct. So we will mine, or we will look to, or we hope to mine these operations eventually to integrate with our titanium metal manufacturing business. And as we talked about earlier on in the show, that we're looking to scale first on titanium metal scrap to titanium metal powders. So we will integrate this titanium mineral resource with our titanium technologies to produce titanium metal. But as a byproduct of that, we will produce a significant amount of rare earth minerals. And as we grow our production out here of titanium minerals to feed into an ever-increasing, what we hope to be an ever-increasing amount of titanium metal production coming from the US, we will just continue to grow that rare earth supply of mineral feedstock. We have a partnership, or we have a MOU announced with Energy Fuels, who can process these minerals. And in the future, we'll be able to not just process these minerals, but produce separated rare earth oxides. And that goes a long way in reshoring the rare earth supply chain in the US. We believe we have a techno-economic assessment coming out very soon, which is the scoping study, which is the first part of our techno-economic assessments. We believe we will be a major source of those minerals for reshoring the American rare earth supply chain. So I think it's important. It's misunderstood a lot by the average retail investor, institutional investor, and by people in the industry. But we have hope because of what we are doing and other projects are doing in the country, in the US, that that supply chain will be reshored, and we won't be as dependent on foreign imports as we are today.
Okay, so that's something that's going to be an evolving story over a number of years, developing this resource, getting it permitted eventually, and producing and so forth. Near term, what has come to the table that's very, very exciting is that irrespective of the growing resource that you have in Tennessee, you have technology to take oftentimes just scrap titanium and turn it into the best, most state-of-the-art product that is needed for industry that you can. Tell us a bit about that and give us a deeper dive into that, because this is just really, really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And IperionX, the vision is to reshore environmentally and financially sustainable titanium metal supply chain in the US, and overall make it cheap enough, make the titanium metal products cheap enough, thereby displacing certain aluminum and certain steel or stainless steel products which are in industry today. Our disruption is not as part of our growth or as part of our development, we will disrupt the titanium metal supply chain. Do we do it in aerospace first? Probably not. Do we eventually disrupt that in the future? Yes. But right now, our disruption is to get out there and create titanium metal products which can displace aluminum and stainless steel products. That market there is $480 billion and growing because of the increasing price of stainless steels and aluminum today. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at developing titanium metal powders which are cheaper and more sustainable than aluminum or stainless steel powders out in the market today. And that can create or allow for companies in the automotive sector, for instance, to use a better metal, lighter weight metal for manufacturing battery packs, for instance, the structural components of a battery pack, or allow titanium metal to be used in consumer electronics applications where aluminum and stainless steel is used a lot today. Again, it's much more energy and with our technology, much more carbon intensive. Yeah. So, the focus of the company was to develop the titanium metal supply chain using a combination of technology, integration, and sustainability. And that's what we're doing. The technology part is the technology that was invented by Dr. Zach Fung out of the University of Utah. Okay.
And going forward, that tell us how that makes for a better titanium finished product, so that we can get our heads around that. What is better for the customer, for cost, for the environment, and so forth?
So the technology that was developed by Dr. Zach Fung was based on a scientific breakthrough he had, where essentially he saw that by utilizing hydrogen in the reduction or deoxygenation of titanium metal oxides or titanium scrap into titanium metal, you could create lower cost titanium, but you could also create titanium in a far more environmentally sustainable manner. And you create titanium metal as a powder from the get-go, so we can manufacture titanium metal powders for advanced manufacturing applications like 3D printing. But when you look at the way titanium metal is made today, it is one of the most carbon intensive metals, if not the most carbon intensive metals manufactured today. Even more so carbon and energy intensive than, say, aluminum, which is considered heavily carbon polluting. So this breakthrough, this scientific breakthrough, and the development of a process that Dr. Zach Fong completed around this scientific breakthrough, which was funded by the Department of Energy's IperionX program because of its potential for lightweighting of vehicles. This scientific breakthrough allows us to completely cut the energy intensity and carbon intensity in the titanium metal supply chain today. We cut it to a point where not only do we bring it well below what current titanium metal manufacturing capacity is today, but we cut it to a point where it is even below that of stainless steel and aluminum. So all of a sudden, we can produce titanium metal or titanium metal powders for, say, additive manufacturing, hopefully at a cost that's equivalent to stainless steel and aluminum powders, but also that is from a 100% scrap source or is 100% recyclable. And is also far more environmentally sustainable, especially far less carbon intensive. So when a automotive company, consumer electronics company, or company in the industrial space is looking at using stainless steel or aluminum over titanium, well, you get a better metal, you get it at equivalent cost, but you also get the added benefit of it being far more environmentally sustainable as well.
Well, and I suspect this is one of the reasons why this process has received some funding from the Energy Department.
Absolutely. So the original funding came for the scale up of the facility from the Advanced Research Programs Agency within the Department of Energy. There was a couple of rounds of $3.5 million that went into it. There was additional funding from other parts of the DOE, which went into the research over the last decade. The funding began in the 2011 timeframe for the technologies that Dr. Zach Fong was focused on within the titanium industry. The scientific breakthrough came around 2015-16. That's when the first patents were issued on the technology. And since then, the pilot facility was built. And in the last year or so, we've taken over that pilot facility and debottlenecked it, continued to scale it, and now we're at the point where we're ready to go into commercial operations.
Neat, and that's kind of what I'd like to wind up or down, as the case may be, with Taso. Is I've got the one slide up here specifically now that says IperionX is now taking this technology through scale up and into full commercialization. So, as we run through, and folks can see this for themselves too, but give us your overview of what the next mileposts are, because again, unlike your great asset in Tennessee, that one of these years, if all goes well, you'll be producing that and making money from it. That's a ways away. This is something that's going to be a lot more near term, where you're going to have an impact on the titanium market and hopefully do well for IperionX's shareholders. So tell us what to look for in the coming months or year or so.
Yeah, we see there being immense value in being the company which can disrupt stainless steel and aluminum, bring cost of titanium metal down. So that has immense value, because it's almost like that $480 billion market is something that if we just took a slither of that, $2, $3, $4 billion of that, that's huge for one company to take on as revenues. Now, I wouldn't put down that our project, our West Tennessee project, is hugely important. In and of itself, it's an amazing project that if this was a mineral sands producing company and focused just on that, it's, I believe, a very valuable company. But that's only a piece of our puzzle. That's the integration piece of our puzzle. The other piece is the technology, and the technology can be fed from scrap. It is actually one of the only technologies out there which can take scrap and fully recycle it, any scrap. High oxygen, dirty, we can clean that up, and we can recycle that into purified titanium metal powders. So that's a huge advantage which is not available today. We're doing that today, and we can scale that really quickly. So my team has been focused on the last 6 months. We've been really debottlenecking the pilot facility and starting to plan for how we go from that pilot to the first, what we're calling demonstration facility. Really, it's a commercial scale plant, or the first commercial scale plant, but we're calling it demonstration because our commercial scale plants, we expect them to be far larger. So right now we've been designing that demonstration facility, and we put out an announcement there. We're aiming for around 125 tons per annum in a production line, so to speak. We hope to have that at least commissioned by the end of the year. New facility, combination of used and new equipment in that facility, and really just scaling the primary deoxygenation process and all the materials handling pieces around that process. But then going into 2023, we start producing a significant amount more powders. Today we're limited to a 6 ton per annum capacity. When we've got 125 tons per annum, we can do a lot more. We can take on contracts. We can start making some cash flow. But in addition to that, we can prove out the process, refine that demonstration facility, and then from there, quickly continue to scale, whether it be in a modular way, just adding more process lines, or looking to scale that process even bigger again. And that is something that you don't see you can do as quickly in say, the mineral space. The mineral space takes time to design, feasibility study, permitting. Construction is typically 12 to 18 months. This is more like building a bakery, I guess, you know. It's you bring, because of the technology, it allows for the scientific breakthrough was beautiful in that it was like taking a scalpel to the way you manufacture titanium metal from oxides or scrap. And so now we can just put together standard off-the-shelf pieces of equipment, apply our process to that, and then quickly scale from there in a modular way once we've built that first facility. And who knows where we go. We have a target that we want to be in the next 5 years over 10,000 tons per annum of titanium metal manufacturing capacity. Today, we're focused in on the spherical titanium metal powder market, which is for the 3D printing industry. Those powders sell for $250 a kilo, so $250,000 a ton. Now, our aim is to bring the cost of that down substantially. We see aluminum and stainless steel powders selling for $100 a kilo for aluminum powders, down to $50 a kilo and a bit less for stainless steel powders. We hope to bring our titanium metal powders to a point where, at least in the 3D printing industry, we can take a significant larger chunk of that market, and then eventually continue to grow it into many other manufacturing processes as well.
Neat. Well, I'll tell you, folks, this is a compelling story. I think my belief, for what it's worth, is that we're going to see a trajectory like we did previously with Piedmont, not just because of the story, but because you announced a while back, Taso, that you're going to be listing in the US, which is approaching, we hope fairly soon. And tell us a little bit about what your near-term needs may or may not be financially. Are you funded to do what you need to do for this foreseeable future?
Yeah, we've got good funding in place. We were able to bring Fidelity in as a major shareholder, cornerstone investor in our last funding round in August, which we did in Australia. Fidelity out of the US. They are 9.7% shareholder, so close to 10% shareholder of our company. We as a management team own a big chunk of the company. And so we look ahead to where we can add value. We can add value by, of course, progressing the mineral part of the business. But I think the big value add is just by showing to the world that we can scale this and commercialize this titanium metal technology. And that includes not just scaling the process, but also securing strategic partners that could showcase which industries we could make a big dent into. And we're hopeful that over the next few months that we can develop or at least announce some strategic partnerships that we've been working on in different industries, and that can help investors understand how big this industry could be. The titanium metal industry could be huge. It's been limited because of cost as to where it's used in only the most challenging applications in commercial aerospace and defense applications. but there's many applications in that it could be used if we bring its cost down. So we're really excited about that. And we think that as we get through this year and we show where those partnerships are going to be focused on, we show how we can scale this process easily, and we continue to develop the full integrated supply chain solution over the longer term. I think people can look back or look towards that and go, okay, that's going to add an immense amount of value.
That's great. Well, look, Taso, thanks again for being a part of the conference with us. I'm going to do my best in the few minutes we have before the next presentation to answer a couple of questions that I can answer intelligently. And if I can't answer them intelligently, I'm going to pass them on to your team for the folks and get somebody that knows more than me.
That's great.
All right. Well, you take care.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you very much for having me.